Hey everybody, this is Doug Mark, president at Learning Zen, back with 5 franchise questions. Today, my esteemed guest is Dan Martin. Dan Martin is an entrepreneur, speaker, mentor, and CEO of IFX. Dan, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Welcome to the show. I know it's your first time on. We're really glad to have you. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. So what does esteemed mean again?
You should know this from your history as a musician.
Yeah, right. No, I never heard the word esteemed actually when I was a musician.
No.
Yeah, so you and I have known each other for, I don't know, 15 or 20 years. IFX is a franchise management firm. We've got a strategy division and a tech division.
Okay.
So we help franchise companies apply and manage technology applications to manage their franchisees and franchise growth and bottom line. So we're kind of a SaaS provider in the franchise channel.
I can obviously speak from experience that I've seen Dan's product and worked with his team. Phenomenal people, so knowledgeable. Dan's led, conferences for years as well. And you've been in franchising for a long time. Dan, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into franchising to begin with?
Yeah, when Truman was elected president in 1946, I got into franchising as a teenager. No, I got into franchising after college in the 80s. I started as a franchisee for a fast food chain with 2 units and really didn't know what I didn't know. I always thought I was right, but found out I was wrong a lot. Whenever I tried to run my restaurant my own way and made a mistake and knew it was my fault, I would pick up the phone and yell at the franchisor anyway. So I was on the franchisee side of things. Then I became an area representative, buying all of Los Angeles County for 18 more units and built those out and kind of wore the hat of a franchisor, being an area representative in charge of support and royalty processing and supply chain and new product development, but also still a franchisee who just does nothing but try to follow the system. So my background goes back to being a franchisee and being an area representative. And I sold my rights in 1995 and took the money that we made, which is pretty good amount of money, and invested it into a technology company, which is IFX. And we were started in 1996. And we developed a series of SaaS platform modules designed specifically for franchisors that were based really on some of the issues I felt that were happening when I was a franchisee about compliance and branding and communications and royalty processing and things like that. So we put together a whole suite based on kind of experience as being a franchisee. So it's more or less a platform that was written by franchisees for franchisees and franchisors. And that's kind of where we've been ever since.
Well, it's always a great story to hear when somebody's worked on kind of both sides of the equation, and you certainly have. I know you've been a mentor to me, but I know that there are hundreds of other people that you've influenced in this industry, and you've been a longtime IFA member. I know you have your CFE, and I know you've been the chair of the supplier forum. You've been on the board of directors, executive committee, technology council. Can you talk a little bit about the IFA organization and why you've been supporting it for so long, and what is the value to franchisors of joining a program like that?
Yeah, well, before I joined the IFA, I thought a franchise was a large order of something that you got at McDonald's. So with ketchup and salt. I really didn't know much about it. We actually got into the IFA as kind of a way of hooking up with franchisors and their franchisees, but we were standing there in a booth, not really knowing the terms like royalties and ad funds and FACs and collaboration zones for brand support, things like that. So I got into the IFA and I got involved with a number of committees, and it really helped me establish relationships with other suppliers and other franchisors that kind of knew the ropes.
Yeah.
So I just really got involved, and it really made it so that they got me information that I didn't know. Of course, I never admitted that I didn't know it. I just said, "Oh yeah, I'll write it down anyway."
Right.
And, next thing you know, I got involved with a whole lot of suppliers, helping other suppliers kind of figure out the ropes with joining the IFA and what they could get out of it in terms of a return, and then helping franchisors. So I became part of the IFA's friendship program, which is a mentoring program for suppliers or for franchisors. So I kind of wore a couple hats: for supplier hat for helping supplier members of IFA, and then a hat for helping franchisors, both startup and established. And the IFA was made a huge difference. I mean, I attended all the events. I jumped on the webinars that they had. I got to know the members of the IFA. I donated to FranPac. So I got involved enough to where they felt that I would be a suitable chairman of the supplier forum. So I took over that, and then I was on the board of directors and kind of involved in all aspects of franchising, mostly because of joining the IFA. So it was a good move.
Well, it's great to hear. I know it was something that was critical for us. You know, when we started out in the industry, like you, we didn't know all the terms, and as we're talking to new clients and they're discussing what their challenges is between franchisor and franchisee and what's in their FDD and their line item 6, and I didn't know what all these terms meant, and so for me, it was, taking those courses from my CFE is where I really started to understand the inner workings of franchising. And you were one of the people who suggested that we join as well. So I always appreciate that and appreciate the advice that I've gotten from you over the years. A lot of people know that, what IFX is as a franchise management platform, but they don't always know the kind of services that come with it, which is yourself and the consulting that you provide. And part of that is, mentoring as well. Is that something that you're still doing a lot of today?
Yeah, it's really the reason why we exist, because the average franchisor is slammed. They've got 40 initiatives going. They've got franchisees kind of yelling at them all the time, and they really don't want to deploy a platform that isn't supported by a company that understands franchising, or at least they can spell the word franchise, which is what we're all about. So we wanted to make it so that we could actually walk our client through implementation and ongoing maximization of any of these modules that we have. They're all a la carte modules for CRM and franchise development and sales and royalty reporting and learning management, things like that. So that we found that, if you're a franchisor and you're slammed all the time, you want technology, which is great, but oftentimes they buy bells and whistles that franchisees would never use in a million years.
Yeah.
And the best example is that, like with most software, you and I both use Microsoft Excel, and I probably use it every day, but I only use 10% of what Microsoft Excel can do. I just know what I know.
Yeah.
So I know there's drop downs and formulas that I could use for more things. I just don't have anybody standing next to me telling me how to run a franchise company using Excel. So if Microsoft called me up and said, hey, we know how to set up a franchise advisory council, and we know how to structure a franchise development process with FDD and DocuSigns and discovery day invites and mapping out drip campaigns and then onboarding franchisees and keeping them happy using Excel, I would jump all over that deal. And if I had someone that knew franchising or how to be a franchisor like that using Excel, I would get maybe 60% out of it. So that's the problem, is that there's a lot of software providers out there in the franchise channel, but they just say, hey, go take it and read the manual and click on the buttons. But the processes, the procedures, the sequences, the when to do things and when not to do things as a franchisor is really the strategy side of our company. We've got a lot of buttons, which makes for neat looking at bells and whistles, but it really comes down to, how do I write a process for managing prospective franchisees, and when do I do the discovery day, and when do I do a background check, and do you have a sample confidential franchise application? And then when I'm up and running, how can I track franchisee insurance certificates, which are always delayed or not renewed on time? And we've got a checklist for that. So the consulting is as Doug, the consulting is as involved as the technology is. In fact, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, I know I reference things that you say all the time. I call them Martinisms.
That's going to get you into trouble.
I know. Ken, who's our sound guy and our video guy behind the scenes, he has a lot of sayings himself, and he's been coined Confucius. But I call some of the things you say Martinisms. And you're actually famous for saying one thing that's resonated with me forever, and I have repeated it, so I probably owe you some royalties for this. But a common thing that I hear is they don't know what they don't know. And sometimes I feel like we're talking about the franchisors, and sometimes we're talking about the franchisees. Could you expand upon that term?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, you can send me a check, by the way. Yeah, so it was originally coined because franchisees like myself, when I started, I thought I knew everything. There's franchisees that kind of think they know everything, but they're becoming a franchisee for a reason, to follow a system.
Yeah.
The irony in being a franchisor is that you sign a franchisee up They sign the franchise agreement and put down the pen. And the moment they sign, they look up at you and say, "Now let me tell you how to run this franchise." And you're going, "Man, I just granted your franchise."
Yeah.
So franchisees are totally cool. They can follow a system by the franchisor. The kicker as a franchisor is to how do you get the franchisee to actually follow the system? That's really the game of the franchisor. But the flip side that you said was that it works both ways. Franchisors oftentimes don't know what they don't know. Many franchisors have never been a franchisor before. And
Right.
if you're a gym concept or a senior care concept and you've been growing really fast, you've probably been adding franchises faster than you can add the infrastructure to support them. And what is support? And when do you collect the ad fund? And what about the local ad spend? And when do you form a franchise advisory council? And when do you talk about secondary franchise units and locations and things like that? So we really kind of took a step back, and we can help franchisors that are new as startup and get structured with infrastructure and software and strategies. But for a lot of the larger ones, they've grown so fast through franchising, which is great, that they were caught off guard as far as support and how am I going to track brand compliance and all the stuff that could get out of hand real quick. So it does. You're right. It does work both ways. They don't know what they don't know, and they have an FDD as a franchisor, and they think that's kind of the golden ticket. But that's actually a means to grant or award a franchise. But it's not what do I do next? How do I get them up and running? And because the
Yeah.
royalties are really where it's at, and then without the unit up and running, it's not going to be as subject to royalties. And will the franchisee follow the system and get up and running in time? And you kind of have to take the bull by the horns and do that as a franchisor.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that exact, same thing from the franchisor perspective. They really can't run everything from the FDD, and we get the same actual response when we're talking about training materials. Oftentimes, franchisors will make the assumption that we've got an operations manual, so we're good, we're covered on training. And they forget about the fact that the operations manual is often a list of all the things you have to do, but nowhere in there is there the description of to how you're going to do this and why it's important to do that. And so being able to explain those things is a really important step for us, because you can't just say the operations manual is the training manual. The operations manual leads to the training modules is typically what we always talk about. Well, thanks again for sharing that. That's like I said, a term that I've been using, ever since I met you. And I always think about the fact that, when you're buying a product, you're really buying that person. And so when they're buying IFX, they're buying Dan Martin, and they're buying the expertise that you have. So you guys have this killer product, but what they really are going to leverage probably more than anything is your expertise in the lessons that you've learned that you share. I've had the privilege of co-sponsoring an event that you've put on, as well as being an attendee where you've done like a live Shark Tank at your conferences before. And I thought those were some of the best events I've ever seen at conferences. I hope we didn't just out that where somebody else is going to steal that idea. But it was really great for me to kind of sit at one of your facilities while you ran the Shark Tank experience. Are you still, putting on, conferences for, basically your clients, but also any franchisors in the business?
Yeah, we do a virtual summit now. So we would do 7 summits a year in local cities. Half of our company is really franchise management strategies, and the other half is franchise technology. So they do go hand in hand. But we do them for clients as well as franchisors that are looking for strategies and tips on how to grow their franchise organization. We always open up our summits, virtual or physical ones, with maybe 30 CEOs of franchisor organizations, and they have to start with their name, their title, and their company, but also the biggest business blunder that they've ever made. And we don't let them sit down on the introduction until they do that, which is a great icebreaker. It's tough on the first guy, but
Yeah.
it's a good icebreaker for everyone else in the audience. And the issue becomes franchisees are certainly willing to follow a system, and they're kind of paying for everything you did right as a franchisor, but they're especially, at least I was, especially paying for the knowledge of what to avoid, what mistakes you made, and how you corrected that, how you turned things around. So not only do I avoid mistakes, but I learned how to deal with issues and turning things around. So that really gets things going. So the summits that we do, which are really intimate groups, are just like therapy sessions for franchisors. And they talk about not so much technology, but we talk about processes and how to deal with franchisee peer-to-peer advisory groups, and how to kind of manage a franchise program. And the biggest takeaway really for a lot of people that I've heard is that they were able to share kind of things that they didn't think were applicable to everybody, that only were happening to them. And it turns out everyone in the audience, this was Jack in the Box or Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory, Yum Brands, or even the huge companies and the smaller companies have the same problems. So it's really kind of cool to develop a summit that has tangible strategies and tactics as a result of people going in not knowing what they're doing compared to other franchisors.
Yeah, when I was there the last time I was there, you managed to create, I don't know how you do this, but you create this, safe space where every brand is comfortable talking about their successes and their challenges. And so one of my biggest takeaways were the fact that all of these executives, CEOs, presidents were in the room together and talking openly about their brands, and everybody was working towards a common goal of how do we do things better? What are the tripwires and things that we can avoid? And I know I took a lot away from that. So yeah, keep doing those. Those are awesome.
Yeah, we did a cool one once. We had about 50 brands attending, and it was just a casual one-day summit. And we had spent the prior 30 days playing the role of prospective franchisee by shopping or mystery shopping the Frandev divisions of these people that were attending. And we didn't tell them. So we used names of celebrities, we used real names, we used fake phone numbers, real phone numbers, and we rigged a bunch of email addresses just to see if how much they were on their game as far as franchise development. I mean, we didn't rag on them or anything like that, but
right.
We inquired through the website, we inquired through social media, we inquired through the direct call-ins using dummy names, but real phone numbers, so that we had machines hooked up to the phone numbers to take voicemails. And you shared the results in the very opening of the summit, and it was largely pretty good. I mean, instant responses and secondary and third and fourth follow-ups, and a couple of introductory emails. But there were about a third of them, literally 10 or 15 of them, that had like no response or minimal response. And of course, it's CEOs in the room, so they're immediately going, well, I don't know what's going on with my friend Dev division, and so we kept it anonymous until at the end of this 45-minute session, and we said, if anyone wants to come up to the stage, we'll reveal who did what and when. And it was just this flurry, this jam-packed running to the stage of about 30 companies. It was just it's hilarious. But the whole point is that if you're a franchisor, you're kind of trusting in your franchise development people to get on board and get onto leads and say the right thing and not make earnings representations that they shouldn't be making and promises they shouldn't be making and not promising the world. But and they're largely doing that. But it is kind of an important thing to maintain control over the process and get feedback. And when it comes to that, or when it comes to franchisees paying royalties on time and doing what you guys do in terms of taking courses either at the franchisee level or the employee level, it's nice to have the oversight that's built into our software, and I know it's built into yours. Yeah. That kind of gives the franchisor a heads up as to, is the process being followed?
Yeah, and I love the visibility of some of those items you just talked about. I think the mystery shop is one that I know we've done it, for clients before, and you've done it. And it's always kind of a fascinating experience. I sometimes do it unsolicited because I love the brand and I happen to be going there anyways, but I can share, some of the feedback of that experience. Can you tell us a little bit about what you think are some effective franchise development skills or techniques that people can be using post-COVID?
For Frandev, it's amazing because there's a lot of companies that are still doing very well.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
It's an opportunity to kind of regroup. The senior care assisted living brands are actually doing very well. There's a huge demand for franchisees to take over territories where the demand from customers is monumental. It's really significant. We're seeing a huge growth in home services like mosquito abatement and lawn care and tree care and stuff like that, house painting services.
Yeah.
We're seeing a huge uptick in the in-home closet and garage cabinet building areas for franchises like California Closets or Closets by Design, because everyone wants a home office now built out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we're seeing that. We're seeing an increase in food operations that have their takeaway or to-go operations or delivery operations pretty well rigged. The gym concepts that we have are taking a huge hit. The preschools are taking a huge hit.
Yeah.
So really, it's an opportunity to refactor your friend dev opportunity so that you're targeting areas via relationships, and that you have your program designed to take off after COVID or even during COVID in a scaled back version.
Yep.
A lot of people are really kind of looking for investments now. They're at home, they're doing research on the web. They might have been laid off or could potentially be laid off by their employer, furloughed or whatever. It's an opportunity to look at that. I mean, I would look at 3 or 4 channels in the franchise industry that would be very solid as far as franchise acquisition goes, and they're doing quite well.
Yeah, and I think there's been this sort of shift a little bit to realize that, before I felt like technology was an option. Not everybody had to have it or was using it. Now it almost feels like it's mandatory that we've got to leverage technology. It's hard to do our discovery days in person now. So we're leveraging, tools like Zoom and GoToMeeting and things like that. We're seeing it in training as well, where people are starting to do, virtual experiences. So I could do, a virtual storeroom as well. And I think we're realizing at first we were a little bit nervous and said, I don't know how this is all going to work. But as people spent more and more time at home and in leveraging the electronic tools, I think they've realized that there's a lot of efficiencies now that we're getting dialed in, and I hope that that's going to lend itself to franchise expansion and franchise growth. Like you said, there are a lot of people right now that have probably been in a career for quite some time that may have gotten laid off, and they're thinking about something new and something different, and turning the corner and investing in a program. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but if I'm a potential franchisee candidate and I'm evaluating a franchise system, how important do you think it is, that the franchise system has a good training program in place?
It's critical, and it's more important than critical. It's a great bit of information to pull out when you're talking due diligence and to a franchise prospect. It's like the prospect may not say this, but they're really nervous, and they're hopefully buying a system that they know that you're going to be there and not forget about them in 9 months, when they know that they're going to forget about everything they learned in training. In fact, in my 2-week training when I was a franchisee, I fell asleep in 10 out of 14 days. So I just figured that there was some kind of training program that I could return to in 6 months, when I basically needed to look up things that I should have learned before.
Right.
So,
Right.
You really as a franchisor, you're really taking the hand of the franchise prospect and walking them through the fact that you got them covered, because they're not going to really, if you slam them with, oh, we do this and this and this, and every year we do this and this and this, and then for holidays we do this and this and this, it's just oversell. It's going over the head of the franchise prospect like you wouldn't believe. So just cover the fact that you've got a learning management system, that you've got a system in place that's incremental, that is designed to be phased in, phase 1 with a goal of this. You give that to the franchise prospect, and they kind of get a feel for the fact that they're not going to be overwhelmed. And it's all part of the system that the franchisor knows. But if the franchisor is smart, they're going to release it in bite-sized increments that the franchise prospect can understand, won't be overwhelming to them when they become a franchisee, and definitely won't be overwhelming to a franchisee. And it's called give, get, reward. You can tell a prospective franchisee that, oh, we have this great system and it starts with this and this and this, but we walk you through each month the phase of what is the goal for that month, how do we achieve that goal, and then when we hit that goal with you, we give you a nice pat on the back, and then we give you the goal for the next month or the next quarter. So that it's an incremental thing that's not going to overwhelm people. Most franchisors, they think, well, since we're charging 6%, we better justify 6% to the prospective franchisee, because they're going to think that's a lot of money for what?
Right.
The royalty actually isn't for support. It's really for licensing, but we kind of fudge on that in franchise development. And we might say that, well, you get 24-hour support, or you get, how to prepare for Christmas and how to prepare for 4th of July and Easter, even though it's like 9 months away.
Right.
To build like quantity. They think quantity is going to make it more acceptable to pay a 6% royalty. And it's just like, at that point in time, the franchise prospect is overwhelmed. I mean, you've oversold it. You've now made it more complex. They just want to know, what do I need to do now? And if you convey that in franchise development and give the franchise prospect a homework assignment of 5 things they need to do in terms of due diligence, like research the competitors, research the market, talk to franchisees for validation, they get back to you with those 5 things, then you give them a nice pat on the back. You look over the 5 things and you say, okay, now we're ready for 5 more things, which is, by the way, hint, hint, how we developed our training program. You can go online and take 5 courses. Hey, we pass those courses, we'll hit you with the next ones. That avoids the franchise prospect or the franchisee from being overwhelmed, and it avoids them cherry picking, where they tend to say, well, I'm going to skip 4 courses and I'm going to go right to the 5th course. I know you can't do that in your system. You can't do that in our system. And we want to kind of ingrain that into prospective franchisees with the same kind of incremental thinking, which is all based on a system, which is all tied to learning, not just read the manual. That training manuals aren't courses.
Yeah.
Your system is courses, and it could be courses for franchisees or their employees, where a franchisee can even assign courses to their franchisees. They don't need to call the franchisor. And of course, the franchisee can see what the results are. And of course, the franchisor can see everything. But without training is equals security, and access to continuing training equals super security. And in the mind of a prospective franchisee, they're looking for security. They're not looking for overwhelming. They don't want to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, they've invested their life savings in this, so they want to make sure that there's that easy blueprint to follow. And being overwhelmed right from the start is more than most franchisees can handle. So that's awesome advice. Getting things in bite-sized chunks is much easier to absorb than getting it all at one time, for sure. All right, so this question's a little bit outside of franchising altogether, but I know the first time that I met you,
volleyball or something like that, motorcycles, volleyball.
Well, we could go down all of those things, all things that I enjoy. But this is one that I know both you and I enjoy as well, which is music. And I know you've asked me before, what was the first concert I ever saw? And I've asked you that question before. I sometimes forget. Was yours Elton John?
My favorite concert was Elton John.
Okay. That was going to be that was really going to be the question, is what's the favorite show that you've ever saw? So Elton John is, do you remember what year was that?
It wasn't just Elton John. It was Elton John in Las Vegas. Which meant that it went from PG when I saw him at the Hollywood Bowl in LA, to then I later saw him in Las Vegas at his $1 Million Piano tour at Caesar's Palace, and it was like, it was in Vegas, so it's like it's definitely R-rated, and it was hilarious, and it was really, really cool. And my knees were so sore because I was drumming every song on my knees and singing every song, and everybody was singing every song, and every song was great. And it was the best show. And I've seen a bunch of great shows, but I don't know, maybe it's because I had 7 gin and tonics, but I remember that it was really, really good.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible show. I have never seen him, and yet I would absolutely love the opportunity to see him. Like you said, everybody knows his songs too, so everybody's into that, and it's really seems like an awesome experience. I've been to some other shows, I feel like, that are similar in category, but still not to that level that Elton John is. So, well, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. I know that you play as well. Do you have a favorite song that you like to play? If somebody handed you a guitar right now, what song would you pick?
I'd probably play a song that most of you wouldn't know. It keeps me limber. It's a song called Classical Gas, which is kind of a guitar solo piece that I play. It has a different pace to it. It's actually pretty cool. Maybe a Stairway to Heaven type oldie thing. These are all oldies anyway, just kind of stuff that I write.
Yeah.
I mostly play just to piss off the neighbors.
Fair enough.
Pump it into an amp and turn it up and play some Heart or something like that, or some older stuff.
Well,
Yeah, I just play. I play because it's just fun. It's just my security since I was 15 or 14. I've gotten into a couple of bands, and the first thing I learned in playing clubs or bars, if you will, like lounges, is that you have to arrange with the bartender to take the drinks that people are ordering for you to play certain songs or to thank you for playing a song and rig them so that they're not really alcohol. Make it look like it's alcohol so that when you're stupid enough like me to say, oh, well, let's do more shots so you can increase the traffic at the bar, which is saying, yeah, you can play another song. Then everyone wants to buy us shots in the band. And it's like, that was cool the first time I did that until I started fumbling chords and forgetting lyrics
right.
to my own songs.
Yeah.
So we started rigging it. So we were drinking away supposedly, but then everyone was happy and everyone was ordering from the bar and everyone was singing along with songs. And to play 45-minute sets, that's 3 hours of playing, and to get good money for doing that is just like, I thought that was criminal.
Yeah.
To get free water,
Right. You would have played for just the drinks.
just drinks. You do that anyway. So that's my fallback in case this whole IFX thing tanks, is to go back to songwriting and playing clubs in Barstow.
That's good stuff. I'm a music guy. My dad was a music teacher. Even had recorded at one point with Johnny Cash, and so
Oh, sure.
I grew up with music being everywhere. I dabble in all kinds of instruments, but I don't play any of them well. But at some point, I hope we get to play together. Hopefully not at like an IFA stage event. Hopefully it's in like one of our living rooms or something after 7 gin and tonics. So
Yeah. Well, you can't really dabble without alcohol.
fair enough. Yeah, that's a life lesson. See, another Martinism right there.
Yeah, and every song is really 3 chords.
If you learn 3 chords, you can play almost everything.
You can.
At least a version of every song you've probably heard. Yeah.
And many songs you haven't heard.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, this was tremendous. It's always great hanging out with you. I pick your brain all the time for franchise help or business development help, and you're a massive wealth of knowledge. And people who have never met Dan, stop by his booth at IFX. How do people get in touch with you? After they watch this interview, Dan.
They can go to they can look me up, Dan Martin CFE or Dan Martin IFX on LinkedIn. You can go to onefranchiseplatform.com. So One Franchise Platform. The theory is that we're one franchise management platform with 10 different a la carte modules. So if you go to onefranchiseplatform.com, it'll get you to what we do.
And that's the theory. You can run the whole system from one platform if you pick the right
Certainly,
one.
it's a remarkable theory.
Yeah. You need the right team. I mean,
there's some clients with 600, 800, or 1,000 franchises, and for 3 or 4 or 5, or some of them are 12, 13 years on board. And I think we figured out how to be a platform. I'm afraid to call them and ask, but I know that they send us money, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tools out there, but unless you have those tools tied to the knowledge, they don't always end up being as effective as you might hope. And so with you, they get that subject matter expertise too, which I think is really what we're paying for. So
it's part of our deal. So it's without that, we wouldn't have any clients because so many clients had come over from other platforms.
Yeah.
They weren't getting the support. They weren't told how to apply it to brand standards, what kind of brand standards were needed for compliance, what kind of legal provisions were required for compliance. And we have a compliance module, but compliance of what? So right. The strategy side is really, I think it's more important. I don't think the software really works unless you've got the strategy side. And about 20% of our clients over the past 2 years have come from competitors. We've migrated from the competitors' platform to our platform, and it's less money, which is great, but it's actually more usage and spread out over more modules and happier franchisees. So the franchisee for us is the goal. Even franchisees that have AOL, God love them, we'll take them too. The franchisee has to use the modules and has to see a benefit from their point of view as to what the module does to help them run their business better. And then you kind of trickle upwards to the franchisor recognizing the benefit. So that's really our focus.
All right. So this is Doug Mark wrapping up our 5 franchise questions with my guest, Dan Martin. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time today.
That was a huge mistake. Thank you for having me.
And just a reminder to people, we put Dan's contact information up there as well. But if you want to get in touch with us, you're going to go to learningzen.com. Be sure to stop by the YouTube page and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. We'd love to keep in contact with you. Anytime we get new followers, it's just another reminder to keep putting out relevant content. So thanks so much for liking our videos and following along with us. And stay tuned for the next video in the series. Take care, everybody. Cheers.
Okay, thanks, Doug.